Welcome to Planning Phase Syndicate Universe Extended, our after hours content about the Book of Boba Fett and everything that we love about Star Wars. This part of the episode, and we promise we will be doing our X-Wing stream tonight. We are 100% going to do that. But we have a special guest that wanted to come on, so we decided instead of having a drunken ramble and looking kind of embarrassing to our guests, we decided what we would do is have everybody come on hour beforehand. So if you're here to see X-Wing content, set your clock and warrant to 9 o'clock, and we'll be back at that time with X-Wing content. But to begin with, we're going to be talking about the latest episode of the Book of Boba Fett, because that is the latest episode 4 in our series, The Universe Extended. With that being said, let me bring my guests and my co-hosts in tonight. Please welcome the amazing, the awesome, the ever-loving Star Wars fan that will knock your socks off, Crabok, a.k.a. Tim.
Hello
from
there.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
What is going on, everybody? Hopefully you guys are having a good time tonight. Thanks for having me on, and I'm ready to talk some Robert Fettuccine.
With us, we have Mr. Charles, the Rimming Rancher, back from LVO. And JJ, why do I wear my Giants hat every time when we don't even talk about sports, and he should be ashamed to wear that hat?
Look, since we're talking about the Book of Boba Fett, I offer loyalty to the team, no matter how bad they are.
All right, fair enough. Well, tonight we're going to be discussing episode 6. It's episode 6, right? I'm not crazy.
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
So we're going to be talking about episode 6. And our special guest is a Star Wars extravagant that will be able to talk a lot about everything else. If it goes really well and he actually likes us, he might come back on to discuss the Thrawn book, since there's 2 other people in this podcast that somehow still haven't read all the Thrawn books. And I've wanted to discuss Thrawn for, a month.
I
read the ones that mattered. All right.
I will talk Thrawn with you all day, because I haven't read all of the Legends books, but all of the newer stuff, I've read every single Thrawn book, usually within a week of it coming out.
All right. So when we finish the Book of Boba Fett, we are going to transition
We're going to do the Book
into
of
that.
Thrawn.
Oh, yeah.
The books.
The books.
of Thrawn.
There's a lot of them.
But we'll start with the high level. But before we get into anything, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to anybody that doesn't know who you are? Links will be in the description of the episode for both of our episodes tonight, in case anybody wants to check out your Discord and your YouTube channel afterwards. But give everybody a quick intro, who you are, what you do, and why you felt the need to join our lovely podcast tonight.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. My name's Tim. I go by Crabok or Crab or Tim or whatever. But basically, I started doing X-Wing content long time ago when I think the Millennium Falcon had just come out. I saw Will Wheaton play an X-Wing on the show Tabletop, and I fell in love with it, and I wanted to learn the game, and there was not very much content on YouTube and stuff like that at the time. And so, like, when I was at work, I was like trying to always, like, whenever I had a break, I was trying to find more battle reports or unboxings or all kinds of stuff like that. And I just was kind of overwhelmed with, like, wanting to get into this game and wanting to buy all the different factions and keeping up to date on all the new stuff. And there wasn't enough information out there. So I just started my own channel, kind of doing all the things that I wanted to see. And then once Star Wars Armada came out, I started covering that too. Fell in love with that game also. Imperial Assault. Pretty much everything Fantasy Flight had put out. Star Wars Rebellion is probably my favorite board game of all time.
Oh, so much fun.
At least favorite 2-player board game. Maybe Twilight Imperium is like favorite, like, in general, but it's harder to get like 6 people or so. And then Star Wars Legion came out, and then I've been covering that. And then Marvel Crisis Protocol, I cover that a little bit. And AMG's got something else coming out maybe this year. So, whenever that comes out, I don't know what it is, but
Are you sure? Are you sure you're just not joshing us?
No, I don't know what it is. I have been told that I'll like it, though. So, I mean, I'm like, okay, well, if it's miniatures and it's by like one of these companies, I'm probably going to like it. So it's not hard. I'm an easy sell. But yeah, I've been doing content for, I don't know, like 5-6 years now. Like I'm up to every day. And so I'm like, it's exhausting. So
I will say this, not to tangent into Legion too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But when we played at LVO, the X-Wing tournaments were in the same room as the Legion tournaments.
Yeah.
number one, those guys, when it comes to terrain, are some next level stuff.
It's pretty good.
But number two, big props to them, because unlike X-Wing, where the only thing that we have to adjust to is your opponent's list and where rocks are placed. Their tables are preset. So what terrain you have to deal with and what terrain you get to use for strategic advantage or causes you a disadvantage is determined at random based on your previous game and what table you're placed at.
Sure.
And the level of tactical brain power that takes to adjust your entire game plan to a different style of terrain is just outstanding. And so big props to those guys. I don't have that level of brain power, but it looked like it was a lot of fun. That's for sure.
You might have more than you think about, because X-Wing is subtly different every time too, where people place their asteroids, you know, like whether it's in the tic-tac-toe board or whether you have lanes or whether it's all in the middle, you know, you always have to make subtle changes. And there are guidelines for how terrain can be placed. So when you're actually setting up the table, you know, there's certain rules on how much you should have, how much of each type, and how much room. There's an unwritten rule of how much room, because they're like the largest vehicle bases are like this big. So you want to make sure vehicles have lanes to be able to. So basically, when they're setting these tables up, they keep those things in mind. So while at a glance it looks like, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming, there's a lot more science, I guess. I don't know if science is the best word, but game science that goes into it.
Well, like what I mean, just real quick, was like on a full table where they had like 4 different games. You had like an open Sith homeworld that had like half buried statues, but it was entirely like open air and line of sights were really, you know, open. But the very next table was like a wooded area and there's like lots of trees and like plain debris. And then the next table was like a Tatooine, like Mos Espa or something like that, where it's a lot of city streets and alleyways. And the complete different play style, even between those 3, is ridiculous, because adjusting to what terrain will allow.
Well, get used to it, because when we ever get X-Wing ground battles, which, I mean, honestly, this is what Legion should have been. Oh my goodness. And I know we're supposed to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. You know, and I know we are, but like, oh my gosh, if they ever do the ground battles, because X-Wing is in the perfect scale for like the Battle of Hoth. You know, a Gazanti can carry 2 AT-ATs, right? And so like that's perfect, right? Or AT-ATs, if you don't hang me for saying
you're
AT-ATs.
Good. AT-AT is fine.
Yeah. But yeah, like you could fit those, they would totally work. Yeah.
So so on to the Book of Boba Fett. So the one thing that I would like to point out, I was not here last week, and I'm not going to jump in. I'm not going to jump in on episode 5, but I will say that I find it amazing that when we look at the directed by, my favorite 2 episodes so far from the Book of Boba Fett have been directed by people who directed episodes of The Mandalorian that were very good, because I believe
Bryce Dallas Howard did episode
5 was Bryce Dallas Howard, right? And that's that's Bo-Katan, right?
Bryce Dallas Howard did the one where they went to the planet and Grogu, like there was the Spotchka farms and the mercenaries were coming out and he trained them all on how to defeat the
yep. And then the most recent was Dave Filoni, which is like show creator along with Jon Favreau. So those have been my favorite 2 episodes so far. Ironically, and Chris has pointed this out, the amazing part about both of these episodes is Boba Fett hasn't talked in either one of them.
I don't know. So I'm actually going to be watching episode 6 tomorrow night with the family, so I'm going to have to wait and see.
Oh,
what?
well,
we're going to spoil it for you tonight.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Get those viewer counts up and watch Krabbick's face as we completely destroy episode 6.
That would be like the funniest thing if you actually had somebody on who were like, wait, I thought we were going to watch it live. Like, here in the show. We weren't supposed to have watched it yet? Or, yeah.
Oh, man, that would have been amazing. Like, I panicked for a second. I was like, shit, he hasn't watched it yet? Well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. I'll be here all night, right? No, well, not all night. But.
You might be. I don't know. At this rate, we're just gonna keep going into this Star Wars stuff after this. So okay. So now that we know who you are, and now that we're kind of into episode 6, so Charles, I would agree with you. The best 2 episodes, the Book of Boba Fett, have been the Mandalorian episode. So the first question I have to ask, Krabak, is: have you been a fan of the other Boba Fett episodes before we get? Because just as an FYI, I have shat all over this show. Like, I have probably been the loudest dissenter in this room. Not that everybody else is far behind me, but I am definitely one of the loudest dissenters of this show.
Okay.
Of every episode except for 5 and 6.
All right. So I'll tell you, I have enjoyed every episode so far. I will say this though, I can understand some of the reasoning. It didn't have the steam, and it didn't have the wow factor that the Mandalorian did. It didn't have everything that maybe we wanted it to have, but it did have a lot of interesting stuff. I think a lot of the flashbacks that we've seen were really interesting and really cool, but at the same time slowed the episodes down a little bit. Some of them I was like, all right, half of this episode was just all flashback. I want to see more of present day. Like, what is he going to do? And so like an hour episode, we get like 5 minutes of what he's actually doing. This is like, so that there was that episode. But I'm also of the mindset that even bad Star Wars is good Star Wars. And I loved going to see the sequel trilogy in the theaters too. I had a good time with those, and I have my comments about them as well. But still, like, even bad Star Wars is good Star Wars. So even like a mediocre episode of Book of Boba Fett, I was going to really enjoy. That being said, after the first episode, I was like, wow, it was kind of slower. Not as much happened that I but at the same time, it still left me wanting more. And that's what I'm building to here is my overall takeaway of every episode that actually featured Boba Fett was, at least mediocre, but where they really succeeded is they left me wanting more.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I won't lie and say that I felt the same way. I would be happy if they just erase this from our history.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So
I don't know that I feel that strongly about it. So I am, of the three of us, Crab, I am probably the most hardcore Boba Fett person. It's hard to see, but I've got a Death Watch helmet on this side. I've got an entire case of Boba Fett stuff on this side. My entire room is like Mandalorian out. I'm like the most hardcore. And it's not what I wanted. Right. And I get that. Right. It's what I have. But we had 4 lines of text and this mysterious guy that was supposed to be the best bounty hunter in the galaxy.
Right.
And he can't string. And this is a lot to do with writing. It's a lot to do with directing. I don't blame the actor in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But I have to agree with Chris that when he has been given dialogue, it's extremely lackluster. Like, I'm like, just don't give him lines. Just let him stand in the Mandalorian armor and look menacing, because that's what he did in Empire Strikes Back, and it worked well. But overall, minus what I would consider to be bad writing and the Power Rangers from, what is that, episode 3?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
I've been okay with the show. Like, I'm not like I was with Mando season 1 and Mando season 2, where like every episode was just breakneck pace out of the gate, action going nuts, and just craziness.
Yeah.
But in that same breath, as a diehard Boba Fett fan, I wanted more. Like, we got to see a lot of Boba Fett in the comics and a lot of like the Legends material that Boba Fett had. Even like the Tales of Jabba's Palace, where Boba survives and comes out of and just goes on a rampage. I would have been fine with that. But I hope, and this is the difference, Chris is ready to just throw it in the sea and forget that it exists. I am hopeful that we're building towards what is going to be a lot of action with the Pike Syndicate coming in, and hopefully like those scenes in the early Godfather movies where the families are at war with each other and just random people are dying, and like it's setting up a much deeper and more rich story. And I'm hoping that as long as I sit through this crap, sooner or later it's going to get better. But I agree, I have steadily caught steam and have started to kind of really enjoy the episodes. I just was hoping that Boba Fett would be more like, you're the best bounty hunter in the galaxy, but 6 street thugs with riot shields backed you in, and you thought it was a good idea to use a rocket launcher and a flamethrower. Like,
so let me counter to that a
no,
little
you're
bit.
good. You're good.
So let me count, or at least ask a question. Let me rebut that a little bit. 2 points. First off, the writing. I get that, and I don't feel like it's only him. Like there are definitely lines where like Fennec Shan's dialogue is like so like she's a great actress, right? She was awesome in Agents of Shield and is just about everything I've seen her in. But like when her and Boba are like, this was from like the first or second episode, and like they're not talking the way people actually talk. They're talking like it's like Shakespearean. It's like, you know, and I wish I had, you know, planned to rebut this because I could have. There was a specific line that I'm trying to recall right now, but it's like, you know, I don't know, but a lot of the lines she gives him are like, you know, you could have just said like, we got to go this way, man. You know, it's like, we must venture forth to thine house or something. Like, no, people don't talk that way. You know, stop talking like that. You're on Tatooine. You know, you're criminals and stuff too. You're not like the king's, you know, the king's subjects and stuff. But so I feel I kind of agree with that part. But where I push back a little bit is the riot thugs thing, like that, how they were cornered and things were, you know, looking bad for them in that first episode. I think that the saving grace for that is that he was injured. You know, he still hadn't healed from his Sarlacc, so he's still got breathing problems. You know, and I feel like we have been, you know, and we're backtracking a little bit because this was before the episode, but we've been like, I've been asking questions the whole time, you know, I'm like watching this. I'm like, why does he keep getting in the Bacta? I thought Bacta heals you when it's done. What is this a PTSD thing where he thinks he still needs the Bacta, you know, and even though he doesn't anymore, you know, and so like, but they did kind of address that, like after the last one, it's like, all right, now you're fully healed. And I'm like, okay, now, so, you know, I kind of push back a little bit because I think they've kind of given you a reason why he didn't do too much, you know, killer acrobatics and, you know, all this cool stuff that I think a lot of people want to see. Maybe not acrobatics specifically, but being that kind of that, you know, can I say kick ass? You know, but kicking some ass. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we want to see him kick some ass, and he hasn't kicked ass yet, but I think they've given us a reason why. But
I hope so.
It's all predicated on if they stick the landing.
Okay.
He got fully healed and then took 2 episodes off. Yeah. He had to take a vacation after getting out of the hospital.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on your theory there, and I feel like this is reaching to all right, and I don't want to come off as an asshole, especially because I host a show. But
we already know this, Chris. That's just letting the audience know it.
I think I know what you're going to say.
I'm pushing back on this because the way it's written and how all these things are happening, right? There's no emotional ties. There's no connection. There's no ability to. He's not really leading. It's like he's got COVID brain, but like permanently. We've had COVID brain for effing, you know, like 4 episodes. And the problem, so I have a lot of other problems, right? I have there's a savior complex, right? That they have in the show that is 100 million times more prominent than in The Mandalorian, period. Like Mando has some of that, but if we go back to Mando, almost always goes back to what am I going to get paid? How am I going to do these things? Boba Fett walks into these people and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do things you never knew how to do. And then they're going to kill them all off. And now we're going to give you this arc that now you got to go do something about it. Like, who gives a shit? Like, not to be, and again, I understand, like, I'm not being drawn into this. And then the other issue, some of the other issues I have, like, the savior thing really bothers me. Like, to me, that's piss poor, like, 80s writing, right? Like, yes, we're gonna go save the princess, blah, 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 blah. I'm done. I don't give a shit. But this is not Boba Fett, right? And when we go back even to The Mandalorian Season 2, you don't see that trend. Boba Fett gets his ship. He goes and helps the Mandalorian for one reason. One reason.
He wants his armor back.
Yep. Yeah. And then he's indebted, which is the way of the Mandalore to some extent, right? That tracks. Even that tracks when we go back to the comic books and we go back to all these other things. That tracks. What does not track is here we are. We're gonna go. I'm gonna be tough on crime. I'm gonna be the new. I'm the new Dinjar and whatever he wants to say.
Daimo.
Daimo. Whatever. I hate that word, but I'm gonna be the new Daimo. And it's like, oh great, you are. Oh, now I'm gonna go talk to speeder bike kids and find out you don't have any work. So I'm gonna offer you a job and be like, why don't you take my job? You have nothing better to do. And oh, now I'm going to shit all over this other guy, which I can't remember what he's from, but I love that other actor.
From The Office.
Milton, yeah.
Office Space and Dodgeball. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's done other things, but that's really the only two movies I know him from.
Yeah,
I-
me too.
I love that guy, right? I like that guy. Not as much as I like Colin, which we'll talk about in a minute when we talk about episode 6 finally. But yeah, like that guy I love more than anybody else. Timothy Oliphant to me is like, if we have to talk about man crushes, that's the like right here. That's mine.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But when we
Nice
go
fun.
going right back to, like it just all of a sudden the way he switches and how he feels, it's like he doesn't understand what he's doing and he just is kind of walking around in this fog. That's where I have the problem with it. Like that's the biggest issue.
To rebut that, right, and talk about that real quick, because I have a theory on that, right? And the theory is up until escaping the Sarlacc pit, he's never run anything other than his ship. He wasn't the head of a crime syndicate. He didn't run a family. He didn't do anything. He went to whoever had the most money in their hand and went, "What do you want me to do, boss?"
Then why
And
is
they
he
went,
doing it
"We're-"
now?
Because he's tired of being the patsy. He's tired
Also-
of risking his own life. But I get it. I agree. I don't understand the bite kids. I don't understand bringing in the Wookiee that tried to kill him. Like everybody that tries to kill him, he's like, "Oh, look, you tried to kill me. Now come work for me." Like, no, you gotta do that muscle. Like let the Rancor eat a couple people. Like you know what I mean? But that's me.
I think he got out of the bounty hunting business because one, he's getting up in age.
He's
and,
old.
he needs a retirement plan. So yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Well, the actor is definitely getting older, and I think whenever I look at stuff in Star Wars, I try to wear two hats when I have my
Right.
fan hat, but then I also have my real person hat. Like certain things they just are going to do. Like how did Max Rebo survive Jabba's explosion? All right, like as my fan is like, well, maybe that piano he had was like up armored. It was made of Beskar, and he ducked inside of it, and it shot him out.
A Beskar piano.
That's
Beskar
actually
piano.
going to come up later in the recap because it basically happens again, and I'm pretty sure he
wasn't there, right?
He's immortal. He's
So-
blue because he's one with the Force already.
But then I have my real person hat on. Is like, okay, but they also did it because it's cool. And I think when you watch these, like the movies, the movies especially, but when you watch the TV shows and the movies and all of the media that's out there for Star Wars, I think you have to. It really helps, especially if you have anxiety, to remember that real person hat. Sometimes they're going to do stuff just because it's cool, and that doesn't give them a license to just do it without criticism. But I think it's like keep in check how much your outrage is going to be when when all of a sudden they say, "Hey, oh yeah, in this episode, Luke has a double-bladed red lightsaber." I'm like, whoa. Like
That makes sense though. I actually would support that. Like 100%. Like Luke got pissed off. He then turns Kylo. It's a whole thing. Like the conspiracy theories can blow. I'm okay with it. Maybe Luke is going to come back in episode 10 and we're going to see him bring Palpatine back to life. Spoiler alert again for the fucking millionth time. And he say, rule of two. That's what we're going to get. I'm sorry.
Somehow Luke and Palpatine survive.
There you go.
They return. Yeah.
They come back. They
Somehow.
find a way to come back from the Force.
It's Luke with two U's. It's the clone from
it is
the Empire
Luke.
series. It's Luke.
And they're doing that too. If you watch Bad Batch, right? They have the mountain and they have the planet, the cloning facility, and all we need is like Mace Windu to come back instead of Jorah Sabaoth. We need an old Mace Windu to be like the
with
crazy
two
metal
U's.
hands guy. Yeah,
Mace Windu.
No, it's real Mace Windu. He survived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he just has no hands now. So now he's hell bent on trying to restore the Jedi Order. He seeks out Grand Admiral Thrawn's fleet to help him retake this old Imperial plan. Thrawn has the access code. Mace Windu has the Force in the plan. He wants to rebuild the Jedi Order from clone DNA because he found one of his hands or something like that. That's his plan.
Oh my god! All right, so stop. We're done. You just ruined everything.
Like hands and make clones from
no,
it's all.
Oh my god! Clone Jedi are like the nightmare of Star Wars. That like that takes.
Tim, I love you. You're coming back every week. Thank you.
That's how it goes, right?
All right,
we need to talk
episode
about
6.
Episode 6. Yeah.
Yeah, let's actually move in the direction. So we got intro out of the way. We got everybody's feelings out of the way. Why it's ridiculous and stupid. And now we're gonna get into the really good episodes of the Mandalorian 2.5, I guess is what I was calling it. So the first image JJ brought up is of the new N1 modified starfighter, which I don't even know if you can call it an N1 anymore.
I believe
Modified. I would say
we're
modified.
unofficially referring to it as the Wizard Starfighter.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I
There you
like
go.
that.
Yes.
That's a good name for it.
That is the 3D printed name for it on Thingiverse. Somebody already had one 3D printed at LVO, and they just referred to it as the Wizard Starfighter.
Yeah, they were giving it away at the Sith Taker online on the Sith Takers
Nice.
this weekend. I did not
Nice.
get one. I tried. Trust me.
So I had to actually look up like what planet this was because it never occurred to me like where exactly was the Jedi Academy located. This is Yavin 4, apparently.
Is it really?
Oh.
So
Yeah.
that's where he did his academy in the old books, in the old canon, the Masasi
Yeah.
temples and all that stuff. But you don't
Yep.
see any of those structures, so I wasn't sure where it was either.
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad
was
they,
thinking.
I'm
I'm
glad
glad
they kept
you
it.
said that because I thought they were leading into like episode 7 with like Octo, where he was on the water planet, and maybe he's just not on the water side of it now or something. Like he's on the forest side. But no, that's really cool.
Oh, yeah, I like that. That's a good thing when it's those little nods to legends that kind of give you hope that maybe we'll see a Mara Jade someday. You know,
Oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna be
maybe.
Mara Jade and Ezra. That's what I think.
Oh, yeah.
that's what I think.
That'd be great.
Can we please get Guri and Shizor, please?
Oh, yeah.
I was hoping that they would
Please.
show up in the Book of Boba, honestly, because
We could see Black Sun at the
Yeah.
end. Like that'd be a good
that'd be so
post-credit
amazing.
scene.
I'm 100% in for season 2 of the Book of Boba Fett where he fights the Black Sun Syndicate.
Oh,
Yep.
man. Yeah. Oh, and you
Anyway,
do you remember
episode
like
6.
the Avengers, like when at the end when you saw like Thanos like turn his face and he's like, yes, like that. And like imagine if they do that with Bezor and he turns around and
Oh, right. Yeah.
All right.
I can't even
As long
think
as they
right now.
kill Boba off, you can have Book of Boba Fett too. And
You
we can, and the
shut your dirty
Mando
mouth.
Mando
You
can
shut
just
your dirty
come.
mouth.
Mando can just come. I know because on the episode you weren't on, I talked about how I feel the best ending would be for Boba Fett to get killed. So that would be like the best thing that could have happened to the series.
What if Boba clones himself again? And then we have he passes on the armor to himself again for another Boba Fett for the sequel trilogy.
You're killing me. All right, next scene we have that you brought up is the building with the little robots and our favorite astromech.
Yes.
Or some people's. My favorite's Chopper, personally. But
I love seeing these construction drones. I mean, like seeing them just like go out, grab these rocks and like just fit them on to make the temple like super efficient. Hilarious that R2 just told them to make him a bench so that way he could just wait and lay down. That was hilarious to me. And then R2 goes in for a nap and then he's out. Yeah.
I didn't enjoy the scene. And I'll explain why. Like, at least to my knowledge. Now, again, I didn't watch Resistance. I'm just getting into Clone Wars, and Rebels has escaped me so far. I didn't really get into the animated series. Ahsoka has largely been absent. So for her to just be chilling out, watching Luke train Grogu after she said, "Nah, I don't want any part of training him," doesn't make sense to me. And why she would just be hanging out long enough to meet the Mandalorian and then take off on her own. It doesn't like there's no link there. Like, oh, R2 said you wanted to go see Link, go see Luke, so he brought you to me instead, and now I'm gonna leave at the same time that you're gonna leave. Like, it just, I don't get it.
That was my complaint too. Like, you know, obviously the episode that she came in Mando season 2, she was really adamant about finding out where Grand Admiral Thrawn was, and now she's okay. I'm just here. You know, obviously this was probably her first encounter with Luke Skywalker that we know of, and she had that conversation. And those lines that she threw out, like, you know, I'm a family friend, and you're just like your father. Those are like really nice to see, like them finally like combining like the extended universe to like the main movies. But beyond that, it's like, okay, you know. Well, they'll probably hopefully explain it in the Ahsoka series.
It's perfectly in line with this is what Star Wars does. This is what Star Wars has always done, in my opinion, is they put things out there that don't fully make sense, and then it's like, that's okay. You know what? People want to see Ahsoka and Luke together. Let's just make it happen, and then we'll use like some book or some comic book or whatever to explain why. You know, and like, you know, and so if you're watching this, I feel like this episode was all fan service. Whereas the last episode was really deep lore. I actually like the last episode better, probably from a lore perspective, because it was all this story. You learned all this stuff about Mandalore. I feel like the direction of Mandalore is ripe for the future of Star Wars. It's a fantastic way to kind of go in there, retake
Absolutely.
this planet, do a whole bunch of stuff that we know very little about. So you have very low expectations. But this episode, especially with Ahsoka and Luke, was all fan service. And who cares why she was there? We just cared that she was. I mean, that's what Dave Filoni probably said, right? Dave Filoni's like, look, I've got like 17 marbles. I need to fit them all into this cup, and I'm just going to throw them in there. It doesn't matter, if we can put water in the cup afterwards, then so be it. If not, then who cares?
Sure.
So we also see the return of Grogu, which is the worst name ever. I name one worse name in Star Wars history than Grogu.
Therm
Izuda
Scissor Punch.
Siuno. Oh yeah,
What?
that's right.
Wait, what did you say? Wait, what was that, Tim?
Therm Scissor Punch.
All right, fine.
He was the dude from.
I don't know. I'm gonna die.
Oh, am I gonna die?
I'm
Yes.
gonna die.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna. God, we were just talking about that in Discord the other day.
Yeah, Discord. Yeah,
Because he was this guy from the Clone Wars, and he helped the Ryloth invasion, and he had such a great voice actor for him too, and he was like noble, and I looked him up, and like, who was this guy? His name's I'm a Gonna Die, and I'm like, wow,
Oh gosh.
yeah.
But in fairness, Grogu is a horrible. I don't care what anyone says.
No,
Like,
I
I don't understand.
don't disagree with you, but I'll take Grogu over Baby Yoda.
Yes,
Any day.
I agree. Yes, I'll take that over. It's probably a wonderful name in his language. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It actually means green go fast.
All right, fine, fair enough. So I find it interesting, and Tim, this is when we talk about my dislike of the Book of Boba Fett.
Mhm.
Some of this type of stuff is kind of why, because my idea for Boba Fett was not going to be going back and trying to set up Mandalorian 3, which is
Right.
what I feel this is doing, and that's why we see Ahsoka. And if I see fucking Obi-Wan as a ghost, I'm done. Like, just so everybody knows, if next episode has Obi-Wan
Oh
ghost,
my gosh,
I'm done.
That's such a great idea. They should totally do that.
No,
Oh my
no,
God.
that's a horrible idea.
I'm calling Dave Filoni right now.
All right, you do
Look,
you
I'm
do
gonna-
that.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I wish this would happen. It's not gonna happen, right?
We need to do that.
Oh, he's on the phone.
You're not.
All right.
Okay, so one of the things that I've seen like on the interwebs was like a web cartoon that I really enjoyed, and it was Ahsoka and Luke like hanging out, and she's talking about his dad and everything, and then like Force Ghost Anakin shows up, and you know what I mean, like she has a meltdown moment because of everything that he did and all this other stuff, and I would have loved to have seen something like that to allow for some sort of character healing internally for Ahsoka, because I'm sure she, as
Then you should watch Star Wars Rebels.
I'm working my way through. Look, okay,
You
so
really should. Yeah.
real quick tangent. I hate the animation style. It's terrible. I'm struggling with Clone Wars as much as I can. I'm on like episode 8 or 9 of the Clone Wars, and it's got to be in spurts because it drives me insane. I don't like the animation style.
Yeah.
But I'm working my way through through Clone Wars. Rebels will be next, and then
Yeah.
Resistance following.
If you can work through the animation, the story is
Yeah.
well worth it.
Yeah,
Yep.
especially Rebels. I think Rebels beats
Yeah.
the heck out of Clone Wars, but
Yeah, by far.
Only
Uh,
because it was less seasons and they knew what they were doing by that time. Like they
Fair.
figured out what they were doing. Because I
Yeah.
watched Clone Wars with my sons when it first came out, and I hated it. And then when the Mando came out, my stepson was like, we're gonna watch Clone Wars again. I'm like, nope. He's like, no. Every 2 times a week, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna consume this until we get through it. You don't get a choice. And we
Oh, boy.
did. We did. We got through the whole thing. It took me, I don't know, like a year. It took
You
me
watch
a
it
year.
chronologically, like all the
Yes,
episodes
yes,
and that-
absolutely.
okay.
No, yeah, we took whatever how it was supposed to be watched, not how they released it, and watched it that way. And it
Yeah, I
made
had
a
to do that.
million times more sense.
that's why
Yeah.
I hated the Clone Wars, because I didn't know. Like, I guess the story is that he didn't know he was going to be able to make that many seasons. So he's just like, all right, let me tell these 12 stories or whatever. And then he's like, oh, you got another season. All right, well, I've got like 12 more stories I want to tell. I'm like, you know what? We're just going to keep this thing going. Like, all right, well, let me just tell it chronologically now. And so that's why you have like all the first 2 seasons just littered with junk. Like, it's all out of time. And Star Wars loves to do that. Like, my dream is that one day we'll get a show that is in the future, and it just keeps going in the future. And we don't have like, here's another story that takes place before this, but after that, but before this. And
Yep.
like, can you just tell me a story in chronological order? That would be great.
Yep. And speaking of that, that kind of goes back to what we see in episode 6 here, right? Is we get to go back and Grogu miraculously gets his memories back. Now, so Charles and JJ, you could just cover your ears for 30 seconds because Tim's read all the books. And I'm going to do a Thrawn spoiler. So if you haven't read the last Thrawn book,
It's okay.
stop listening.
Yeah.
3 seconds, 2, 1. Okay. So at the end, or towards the end of the Thrawn book, the last one.
Yeah.
Seriously, spoiler alert if you have not read that book.
That's fine.
All right.
Okay.
I'm dead serious. Like,
I'm not going to read them, so your spoilers mean
great.
nothing.
I will read
Go
them,
for
but
it.
I go after spoilers anyway, so I'm okay.
They talk about Third Sight. They actually go back and explain what happens to the children in Third Sight and why the children can't remember all their family past and all of that stuff, right?
Because they do they have that whole academy that wipes them out.
Yes. And what is that? Like this episode where all of a sudden Luke goes like this. To me, this is what made the episode for me. The rest of the episode is meh compared to the episode 5. That piece of this episode is ecstatic because they don't explain how they're doing it. But in my opinion, this is a nod to Third Sight to that, right? Because what do they call? What is the big takeaway that they talk about in the Thrawn? They talk about Skywalker. Well, what the fuck is the Skywalker, right?
It's
And
a
this
Force
is
user. It's the kids, and the kids lose it as they get older. Yeah.
Yes, and like I'm sorry, I get really excited about Thrawn. I love Thrawn so much.
So here's a big what if. We still don't know from this scene like how Grogu was saved. These Jedi who are defending him seem like they're not gonna do all that well. And I was thinking for a second we were gonna see somebody like swoop down, like somebody maybe that we like the librarian or something like that or whatever. Some familiar face would be like, "You're coming with me."
Yes.
And we didn't see that. What if it's a Chiss that saves him?
Oh, what if it's Thrawn? Holy shit, dude!
I don't think it could be Thrawn.
You don't?
No,
he was
you're
like
right. You're right.
300 years old. This is
before. This is during episode 3.
Yep.
Thrawn didn't go into his exile. He was in exile during this time, all the way up until I think early Empire when they still had Venators.
Okay, but spoiler alert again. Why is he in exile? There's a reason they explain it at the end of the book, and I guess we shouldn't talk about that because we're gonna have you back on to talk about that.
Well, I thought they did explain that in some of the other books is because he had a disagreement on how they should proceed with the defense for the Chiss Empire or something like that.
That's kind of part of the third book. They go into more detail on his exile, which we don't need to get into here. But the point is, I think he was, I think between his exile and when he finally shows up in the first Thrawn book, I don't think he's been like doing what I think they're going to do with Obi-Wan and have him be like, I know I'm supposed to be on this planet, but I happen to have a super fast shuttle and I'm gonna zip around the galaxy all over the place. Because Obi-Wan on the Obi-Wan show is not going to just stay on Tatooine the entire series. He's obviously going to go to the Death Star and fight Vader on the Death Star while it's under construction.
Please no. I'm so tired of Tatooine. Please no.
Yeah, because you know that when they're dueling, and I know I'm taking us off topic again, but like when Vader and Obi-Wan are dueling in episode 4, Vader says the circle is now complete. You know how Obi-Wan has these quips? They're going to duel, and he's going to be like, they're going to be on the Death Star or whatever, still not functional or whatever. And he's like, this is a very nice circle you've built here. And so that's why Vader says the circle is now complete.
Oh my God.
He's going to say like, you should not have come. He says you should not have come back. That doesn't make sense unless he's been there already.
That's true.
Yeah. So,
now, how the fuck did George Lucas set this up? How many years beforehand?
Because George Lucas is a savant, and he knew that the 4 of us were going to be sitting on this podcast and have this revelation right now.
No, it goes back to what I said before.
Miss Cleo.
He doesn't. None of it is planned. None of it, like the books and everything. Like they just throw out this stuff and like let the fans collect the dots between the meatballs on the wall. And that's what's like. Oh, that's a good fan theory. Let's write that in.
All right, so
I'm picturing It's Always Sunny, and George Lucas is sitting in front of a gigantic string map connecting everything together.
So quickly before we move on, so the two pictures up, I kind of zoomed in on the image that was on the door on the right. So I had to look it up there because I wanted to know who's one more up. It's in Grogu's like flashback, right? There's a symbol on the wall there on the right door, right there.
Yeah.
That symbol, I was looking it up because I thought I had recognized it, and I ended up seeing it on the web. So that it actually appears in the Clone Wars in season 5, back when they go through the whole Barriss Offee arc. where she decides to go dark. So this is in front of her room where this is happening.
So it's Barris.
Mm.
If she was in prison, or but yeah. So
that's a spicy take there, JJ. I
And
missed that.
They never revealed who that girl in that dark cloak was in Mando when he gets onto the water planet for the frog lady.
Oh yeah, it could be Barris.
So,
somebody who I think the assumption was that it was Bo-Katan watching him quietly. Yeah,
that was my assumption. But that made all right. If they bring Barris into this, that's pretty totes. I'm pretty excited by that. If that happens,
as an antagonist for Ahsoka, I think she would be a pretty good one. Yeah.
I don't think you bring her in here. I think you save her for the Ahsoka show.
Yeah,
and then you do an episode where Ahsoka's entire episode is a flashback to everything that's happened.
God damn it! No, no, stop! No, I hate all these. No flashbacks. No, we can have more frog eating. I'm okay with that.
I wouldn't mind if they did another flashback to when Ahsoka was a little kid meeting Plo Koon for the first time.
Oh yeah,
that would probably be cool.
That'd be cool. Yeah. So this particular part, right? I love how Grogu uses the Force to lift the frog, and then Luke like stares at him, is like, "Really?" And then next thing, he basically one-ups him by lifting every single frog in the area for Grogu. I'm like, what was the point of that lesson?
I was confused by that as well. I'm glad you said that, because like it sounded like he was like, Grogu, don't eat the frog, but then he's like, eat all the frogs.
You can't have enough frogs. Don't eat the eggs, just the frogs.
Wait till they're fully grown and then eat all of them that you want, just like we do with chickens.
What do you guys think of the improved CGI deep fake?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was good.
I saw a poster that had like Sebastian Stan in like Luke Skywalker outfits, like they're recasting Luke Skywalker as Sebastian Stan, which I'll go on record now and say that I'm all for. But this like deep fake stuff is phenomenal. If I didn't know that Mark Hamill was really like 65, almost 70 years old and just like decrepit looking in real life, sorry, Mark, I love you to death if you ever watch this one-off podcast, but they make him look like such a boss here, and I love it. I love every bit of it.
Yeah, it was good. It still was a little bit off, but only a tiny little bit. Yeah,
it's so much better than the end of Mando. How about that?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and they hired the guy who did the deep fakes, and so that's why now you're seeing like all these other, like another character that we'll talk about later on that had his own like, oh, I fixed it. Like everybody's now trying to get hired by Disney by trying to like show off their skills and their little viral YouTube videos now. But it worked for this guy, and this was a really good improvement.
Yeah. And then we got the training montage here with Grogu and Yoda going through, very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back. So that was good.
Grogu and Luke.
Yeah.
Did you say Grogu and Yoda?
Sorry, I meant Luke and Yoda in Empire Strikes Back.
It rhymes.
Can we stop real quick? I gotta go back and touch on the frog thing. So what if this is leading Grogu to become a Sith? Right? Like, what if this is like Luke's like,
look at all the people
you could just eat all these things, and if you had the Force, and Grogu's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take all these and more because I'm more powerful than you, and maybe Grogu's our secret Sith that just he gets his own show 5 years down the road, and we all yell at Disney because they suck.
So
they should.
I'm watching the chat, and Ghost Cat Mitty says something, and I didn't think about it until he said it, and I guess in some off-shot way it makes sense, is that Grogu is still childlike mentally, like shiny objects and, wild animals catch his attention. If you're trying to train a child in the ways of the Force, you use references that they can understand. So he was showing Grogu what's possible if you actually focus and mature on the Force. And the only thing at this point that Luke has seen that Grogu has remotely shown any interest in was using the Force to lift a single frog. So by creating a reference that he understands and showing him, look, instead of one, if you take the time to build and to focus, you could have all of this. It kind of brings home a reference in a childlike mentality that would help make a bigger picture clearer than any words or anything that we can say. So I could see that, and I think it's a really good point.
Why murder a single frog when you can do genocide?
Just like what happened to all your friends.
I was gonna say there's an internet theory that the reason you don't see anything really try to kill Yoda is because he was the top of the food chain
The
on
apex
Dagobah,
predator.
and
Yeah.
everybody was terrified of him because he was the apex predator. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe it's just in their DNA. And Grogu's next, but he's gonna do it on Yavin with frogs.
Ugh.
Could be.
All right.
Yeah.
All right,
So Mando drops off the his chainmail, and I called it.
Yeah, fuck you.
And then we had a quick moment here. Mando finally gets back to Tatooine. He parks in the garage, gets his valet, and then we see the entirety of Boba's forces here. We have the Power
all
Rangers,
6 of them. All 6 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Black Carson on the edge there, and Fennec and Boba there, and it's like, yeah, we need to start like building up our forces. I'm like, you think? Like,
So I have a
yeah.
question about this. You know, for Black Chrysanthemum specifically, every time he's been mentioned before this show, he's always been written as Black Chrysanthemum. You know, he's got black fur and he's like a dark dude. He like works for Darth Vader and does stuff, you know, like a bad guy and all this stuff. But here, and every time they're talking about the show, like whether it's like the Star Wars show, whatever, they only call him Chrysanthemum, and it's like they don't want to. Like, all right, I can understand like wanting to kind of avoid certain language, like they don't want to do the Leia bikini thing. Like, there's not gonna be any more Leia bikini action figures, and then the Slave One, it's still the name, but they're referring to it more of a fire spray gunship, which to me makes actually a lot of sense, because you know he would probably refer to it by that for somebody who wasn't familiar with the ship. But in this case, that's Disney's own thing. Like, they named him, they created him, they called him Black Chrysanthemum. Why can't they? You know, like, are they changing his name? You know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know, because I've never heard him called Chrysanthemum, and maybe I haven't because I haven't read all the comic books, but I don't recall a single instance in any of the comics that I have where he was written just when anybody referred to him as Chrysanthemum.
I'm just gonna say, when I saw him on the show, I was sitting in my office and I had a very loud exclamation where I said Black Chrysanthemum. Like, that's
yeah. Yeah. It was pretty wild. I mean, like, they nailed him. He's so pleasing to look at. Like, I want to see the book of well, let's call it the book of
the Book of Chrysanthemum.
Yeah.
The Book of Chrysanthemum.
Would...
So then, so after this part, you know, they, you know, they're like, we need to get more foot soldiers and stuff. And Mando says that he's gonna go grab. He can help out with that. So he flies around. Interesting that he flies over to the Jawas that have the remains of the head of the Krayt Dragon.
Yeah.
And they're all like, wait to him, like, hey, I'm like, how do you know that's Mando? You're like, you've never seen that ship before. Well, unless that was the same Jawas, but yeah.
I have a theory that there's only one group of Jawas. There's not like a massive culture. It's one sandcrawler of Jawas on Tatooine, and that's it. They have been a part of every like Star Wars journey on Tatooine because there's only one. They just happen to be in the right place.
The original party bus is what you're saying.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right, cool.
So then it needs to show up in X-Wing too, because it's a spacefaring sandcrawler.
Yes,
absolutely.
Okay.
And then finally he gets over to meet Justified. I'm sorry, Timothy Oliphant, over in his town over there, and he talks him out to come help out. And he has a new deputy, which is pretty interesting. That guy was really trigger happy. Holy crap!
I wonder if he becomes a flyboy later. Oh, obviously not.
Nope.
No.
When
I first saw him, I thought he was the same actor. So if you guys remember, it's back to Mando, I think season 1, when they go to the prison rescue ship. Well, like one of the greatest episodes, fantastic episode. But like the captain was Matt Lanter, who does the voice of Anakin in the Clone Wars, and so they gave him a little bonus role as this captain. And I thought for a second, because this guy's got a more dirty, kind of rugged look, I thought it was the same guy, but it's not. It's a different guy. But I was like, wouldn't it be funny if they just cast Matt Lanter in every show as a character who's going to die?
He becomes the red shirt of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right, exactly. All right, and then finally, he leaves. He says he's going to talk to the townsfolk to try to convince them to help join the fight, and then we get probably the best surprise this season, Cad Bane. I was absolutely so stunned, and like the second his silhouette came, the hat, I shouted it out, and my wife was like, "Who?" I'm like, "It's freaking Cad Bane."
Yeah. You're probably thinking like, or I was thinking, I was like, well, it better be. They're not going to, if they tease that silhouette and it's somebody else, then it's going to be a huge letdown.
All of a sudden, hello there.
It's Obi behind the mask. You just wow.
No, so I heard some people saying like, why was he walking so far out? Right. Did he park his ship really far away? Was it that because like he wanted to make this crazy entrance? I actually think it goes back to the deputy. Remember when Mando just left, right? Mando lands there and the deputy was like, you need to park over that way, dude. And how much you want to bet Cad Bane did the same thing? But Cad Bane is like, park over there. Okay. Wait, that's terrible. I can't do it. Anyway, but Cad Bane actually parked in the parking lot, which was like, 2 miles away. And so so Mando's gone and Cad Bane's walking up and he's like, I'm going to shoot this guy for making me park so far away. If they had just let him park. If they had just let him park, it would
parking.
Yeah. So,
I don't know. For me, I agree, JJ. This made the whole episode right there. Like you could have cut 80% of it out, other than the nod to the third sight Thrawn thing that I mentioned earlier. This was really hands down, and this, as we're wrapping up, this kind of ties into X-Wing, right? Because we had somebody on some other website spoil a Cad Bane ship, right? We know between Bad Batch and the fact that now we're seeing it here, so you could tell timelines of how long FFG has known to some extent Cad Bane is coming. They probably didn't know the show, but somebody has spoiled and said, hey, let's put this ship in here. And there's a good reason for it. And that means Cad Bane's probably not going to die, though I hope he kills Boba. And
it's him versus Fennec. It has to be the rematch, man.
All right, and that's fine.
You got to do the Clone Wars deleted scene.
Yep,
and
there
they
you go.
kind of did that here, right? They kind of did. So, they won't do it exactly the same, but because you're not going to have like who are all the bounty hunters surrounding them in that scene. You had just everybody.
Or I think Aura Singh was in it, wasn't it? And
but she's dead.
Side note, just real quick, I went to Disney Springs today, and in the Star Wars store, they have a rather abnormally large supply of Aura Singh figures.
But she was officially dead
series.
in the Solo.
Well, he pushed her. Movie. He pushed her. He didn't kill her.
Did you see a corpse? This is Star Wars, brother. Did you see a corpse?
Yeah, how many times has Palpatine come back yet? For fuck's sake.
I mean, really.
Yeah, Boba Fett got thrown into the Sarlacc, and now he's got his own show that he's not in.
Yeah.
Nice shot. Well done, sir.
The Book of Aura Singh is going to start out, and it's going to be like, hey, let's see where Han Solo is during all of this.
All right.
Oh my gosh, the Cam Tono.
And then I wanted to freeze on that particular one because you can see that the bomb is placed right next to the band to show that they're going to kill Max Rebo. If you go one more picture up.
Oh, was that a Max Rebo assassination attempt? Is that what that was?
Yes, that was. This is all a ploy just to kill Max Rebo.
But he wasn't there, right? Like you didn't see him. You saw a figure in Dan.
No,
you saw
you saw the rest of the band, but I mean, he might have been in the bathroom at the time.
How much do you want to bet Max Rebo was the spy for the Pikes the whole time?
Right?
That could be.
I appreciate you more than you understand, sir.
All right, so you missed an image here. So we missed. So before we wrap up, and I want to talk about this real quick. And then I promise we'll let Tim go because we got to get to our regular podcast, and Tim's got to go to bed because he's an old fucker. So, so in episode 5, we saw an appearance of a droid from a video game, BD1.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy, right? That's crazy. I guess my opinion is I'm excited if they want to start actually intertwining some of these video games. On the other side, I'm a little scared because I personally thought Fallen Jedi was, Fallen Jedi. Oh my God.
Fallen Order.
You got Fallen Order.
Sorry. But I actually enjoyed that game and that story for the most part. I thought it was a little short, but I actually
game.
genuinely enjoyed that, and to see this little nod, right? So what does that mean? What happens to Cal, right? What happens to any of these other characters from that show? They can all of a sudden now appear. So Disney's telling us a little bit that, hey, even though these are separate mediums, we might bring some of that in. And if BD1 actually becomes a bigger part of this new lore, I'm excited by that. What I don't want though is it to ruin the games so that we have these very lackluster games that are meant to be like a Book of Boba Fett to drive the Mando story. I'm sorry. I don't mean to jab at the Book of Boba Fett that bad, but it feels like a vehicle for other things. I do not want my video games to become a vehicle for Star Wars lore. I don't need that. I don't care. Make it extended and give it to me separate. I really enjoyed that Fallen Order a lot, and I like the story from it as well. So
they should do Legends video games. This way you have, just like how Marvel has like that Avengers, that's a whole different storyline than the MCU Avengers, right? So just give us a Grand Admiral Thrawn and Mara Jade and the Talon card, and give us that story in a video game. Let us play through that.
Oh,
look,
God.
I'm gonna go on record right now. If Disney gives me any character from the Legends universe, just one, if I get one pick, please give me Talon card and the Wild card. I want that ship. I want that character. I don't care how you throw him in. Give me Talon card, because that
who would
man
you cast?
They did. His name was Hondo Anaka. He got
a well done, sir.
Yeah, but yeah, I think he'll be if they do Ezra and they do like Thrawn and Ezra in like a whole separate part of the galaxy, that's a perfect opportunity to bring in Talon card and Mara Jade and a lot of that stuff.
Oh, heck yeah.
Agreed.
And I think it opens up that door where one of the reasons I was excited by the Book of Boba Fett, right, is because we're talking about unexplored territory to some extent, right? We're talking about going into the Outer Rim, going through some of these stories that don't have to be A, so Jedi-centric, and B, can talk about a larger narrative like a Game of Thrones-esque Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could start expanding to an extreme extent. And the Thrawn trilogy, for the most part, does that, minus the 3 books that talk about how he interacts with Palpatine and Vader and all of that crap.
Yeah.
But the Thrawn book sets some of that up. We get the Nihil. We get all these other I'm sorry, that's High Republic.
High Republic's good too.
I agree with that. And that I'm not finished the last book. I got 4 hours on my audiobook left of that.
Okay.
So I got 4 hours left. No spoilers on that because I'm right at the peak of everything.
I'll talk High Republic with you any day.
But yes, I'm excited by that too. I really like the High Republic, the ideology and how they've structured these stories now. But I think what this does is this opens up, as a Star Wars fan, this opens up unexplored territory where we don't have to specifically have a Luke, Leia, Chewie, Han centric world. We can finally get away from these, and if it means we get some of these extended characters rewritten and brought back in, great. The best thing for me out of everything, so I like bounty hunters and all this, but I'm a Sith fan. I've read all the extended Sith books, every single one of them. Let's bring back the Sith Order to some extent. Let's talk about how the Rule of Two became a thing, because that's reference. That is not Legends anymore. That's canon officially. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Let's bring that back. With that being said,
I know you mentioned you didn't want to do video games for lore, but if you go back to the KOTOR and the Knights of the Old Republic, they kind of explore that Rule of Two and a lot of the Sith origins as well.
No,
can I ask you guys a question before we wrap up? I've kind of a 2-part question for everybody.
Yeah.
First off, what option do you think Grogu is going to choose? Or it's only if you think they're even going to talk about it in the next episode, because I think they've kind of set it up to where they have to answer that question in the next episode. And then 2, if you had one more cameo, fan service style cameo in the last episode, realistically, who do you think, or who would you want it to be?
So I'll start first. He chooses the lightsaber because he's going to want to help, and by choosing the number one, it's shiny, and that's well on par for Grogu. if he chooses the Beskar armor, what he's going to do? Throw himself in front of a blaster bolt? I saved you.
Stop.
The other part is a real good cameo that could show up would be, in my guess, would be Kira, who is really pulling the strings behind the Pikes. That would be a really great like part for her to come back and reprise her role. I think that would be right.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I also think the lightsaber. Just because I don't. Okay, so I'm gonna steal your thing, right, Tim? And I'm gonna say real hat, Star Wars hat, right? Both of them align with the lightsaber.
Okay.
Because, like, in my mind, the Mandalorian armor does him nothing. It does no good for, like, driven story other than they kick him out of the Jedi Order. He's a rogue Force user that is not aligned with any training whatsoever, but he's not really a Mandalorian because unless we're going to use that to push the Mando character back to Mandalore to wash in the waters underneath that temple to regain his Mando honor. But again, I don't see Grogu doing anything really within that storyline that's going to change it other than be the random Force user that saves your ass because you got more than you bit off more than you could chew.
Mhm.
So for me, both of those hats, the realistic hat and the Star Wars fan hat, really want the lightsaber to be the way he goes. I would love to see a Force user that's not traditionally trained and allow that we never see really the Padawan to full journey. Like they're all flashbacks. Like Kylo Ren was a flashback, and any real Force user is always just been a flashback or real quick scenes because Anakin goes from child to teenage. He has a Jesus Christ level time warp from childhood to adult in bam. You know what I mean? So like you don't see a lot of that training. I would like that to be a better story arc. As far as cameo that I would like to see for fan service, that's a really good question. It's not going to happen. I would love to see Mara Jade. She's probably my favorite series. When Chris says the Thrawn trilogy, I understand he's talking about a completely different series of books. I read all of the Legends books. I am that Star Wars fan that could not get enough of the Star Wars literature in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Young Jedi Knights books that were written for like young adults that were still amazingly well written. I would like to see Mara Jade just because of the level of character development that she had in the Legends series, but I would like to see what they would do to her now that Luke Skywalker's wife and mother of his child are no longer an option in the modern universe because Luke is dead. So I would like to see what they do with her character to move her out of Legends and in, or I really want to see Guri. If I could have Kira be who's pulling the strings and have Guri there because she was the mastermind behind what was Shizor's rise to power as the assassin / pleasure droid, I'm happy with either. That's mine.
She could at least be the lieutenant that's acting as his proxy.
Yeah.
I think
if you see any blonde female humanoids like walking around with the pikes, you're gonna be like Leo DiCaprio.
I'm gonna lose my mind, man.
So for me, I think he chooses the chainmail, and I think it ends and solves. I think it does the exact same opposite of what Charles says. In the aspect, it is the Star Wars way and the realistic way, right? Like we know deep down, Grogu probably doesn't want to do this shit. He's too young to do this. There's nobody forcing him to do it like back in the day. But in reality, he really just wants to be back with Mando. A. B. It solves the problem of how he doesn't die when Kylo and kills everybody. You don't have to write that story. It's done and over with. It also kind of goes into Luke being able to utterly give up. So he didn't lose just one, but two apprentices that were extremely promising. So for me, it's a chainmail. It allows Disney to keep the Disney hat on, right? And how do we get Grogu into season 3 is to sell more merch. Cameo for me, it's Ezra. I want to see, and this is an after credit scene at the very end of Boba Fett. That is the after credit scene beyond everything else. Like I don't care. Don't set me up Boba Fett 2. Not on Tatooine. No,
not on Tatooine. Yeah, no. Like away.
No, he's gone. We know what happened to him. Spoiler alert. We know to some extent he's gone. Him and Thrawn, they're gone. They teleported some fucking place, and we know that happened. And that's unless Ahsoka is really not going to engage Thrawn, but we kind of know that's going to happen because we've seen the characters already, right?
And Cad Bane actually, with the blue skin, gives me a lot of like.
Yep.
I feel a lot better about them doing a live action Thrawn now after how good he
Yes,
looked.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's for me it's Ezra either imprisoned or with Thrawn somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That's my thing, and I think that allows for character development for Ezra because Ezra was this immature piece of like annoying garbage in Rebels. Like I love that show. Don't get me wrong, but he was annoying.
The first season he was annoying.
Season one.
It's what a great show to grow over time, and he really So I agree with so. I think he's going to choose the chainmail, and I think a big part of it is that of course the realistic hat is for the merch and getting him into the next season, but also it's because it mirrors The Empire Strikes Back. Luke abandoned his training with Yoda, and so now Grogu abandons his training with Luke. And so, but that means you can still come back. Like Luke still came back and was a Jedi the whole time anyway. So I think he's going to end up getting both, but I think he'll do the armor first. They put so much into the armor for him not to use it. It feels like weird. Like there's going to be a point where he gets shot, maybe by Cad Bane even. And you think he's down, and maybe you don't know what he chooses because I think Luke comes with him. I think Luke, either comes with him. Like, how's he going to get there? Like, how's he going to get exactly? Luke's not going to throw him into space like a football. Like Tom Brady just throwing. So
that'd be an interception. Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, and what did they put in the N1? I mean, what did they specifically point out? Right? They specifically point out it no longer has an astromech.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing.
Yeah. So it means Mando didn't take R2 with him. So yes, but we already saw the N1 leave. So I think Luke's obviously got to throw him in the Red 5 and he's got to fly him back there. And so that's definitely going to happen. But if you're going to have Luke, I'll get to my cameo. I like what JJ said about Kira. I was thinking along those lines too, but since they've done so many cool things with the technology to make Luke look like a young Mark Hamill, what if we get Han Solo?
Oh, that'd be pretty.
I was thinking Han Solo or Carrie Fisher because there was a point where she talks about going to see Luke at the temple in like episode 8, I want to say, or episode 9, where she talks about how he wanted to set up the temple and all of that stuff, and it all went awry. And she remembers dropping off Kylo. So how cool would it be for young Carrie Fisher to arrive with like Toddlo Ren? And
little Benny.
Yeah, little Ben, and drop him off for training right after like Grogu leaves, and that's why Luke is all off kilter because he lost his training and now has a chance to redeem himself.
So wait, for Han, would you do solo Han or like a DH Harrison Ford?
No, I'd do Harrison Ford. As much as I like the solo Han, I think he did a good job. It was a good movie. It just wasn't great. It wasn't good enough. And I think if you want to wow people, give me a young Harrison Ford with young Harrison Ford's voice. Whether or not it's Harrison doing it, you could probably get Mark Thompson to do a Harrison Ford voice.
Either that or you could deep fake from like American Graffiti.
Yeah,
because young Harrison Ford was in American Graffiti, and probably get some stuff.
And that's another reason, right? So like, and it could be a post-credit scene because look, Harrison Ford, like Han Solo doesn't like Boba Fett, and maybe he got wind that hey, Boba Fett, where Boba, he's the one who put me on carbonite. I'm gonna go. I'm not letting him take over that whole enterprise. I'll have a load of bounty hunters after me. Let me go take care of this. Come on, Chewie. So Han and Chewie, it's easy to do Chewbacca. Han shows up there, has his like, I got a bone to pick with you, Fett. Fett's like, no, I'm a nice guy now. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. We can become.
And he shoots him. He shoots him and he dies. So
there you go.
So real quick.
No, he shoots him, and then Grogu jumps up and gets hit in the Beskar armor and is just gone. Han would like the American Graffiti style Power Ranger bikes, though. He would probably like that.
Sure.
Oh, you're not wrong.
So Ghost Calamity, real quick. Then we're going to take a quick break. I got to take a 5-minute break to get more water and probably some more whiskey.
I would say water.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you paid attention to me on screen, I've drank a whole glass of water tonight. Thank you. And 2 glasses of whiskey. So I'll be nice and toasted for our X-Wing discussion. He says Hera. I agree too. Actually, give me a live action Hera, for fuck's sake. We've seen Twi'leks now. Give me Hera.
Okay, hang on. Hera with Jason Syndulla.
Oh, yes. Woo! All right, man. Man, you just spicing this up, bro. We got all sorts of little spice in here. You're gonna give me Jason Syndulla. Yes, thank you. Or give me a force cameo from Kanan. I'll take that too.
Look, I'm gonna say this right
How
now.
about all
I don't
three?
care. I don't care how much you guys crucify me for this. There is only one Jason in the Star Wars universe, period. It is not Jason Syndulla. It is Jason Solo. And that is Darth Cadus. You thumbs down all you want.
Well,
the
Jason
legend storylines
is
were
probably going to do the
100
same thing. He's probably
was
going to mirror
the
it.
legend storyline of Han and Leia and their family and the building there 100 times better than the crap that
Rey
was
is a
7, 8, 9.
Skywalker, and she could give.
Rey is not a Skywalker.
Rey is a Skywalker.
Your dirty mouth.
Everybody can be a Skywalker. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody can be a Skywalker. You can be a
Yeah.
Skywalker too if you come to Disney Springs and you drop down $7,000. You can become. I want to say I'll leave you with this. Also, I wouldn't be disappointed if they gave us an Iden Versio thing.
All right.
In a post credit scene.
I would like that too. I think that fits quite a bit too.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Right.
two things. Two things. I said this like 100 times already. So the difference is the last 3 episodes for the Star Wars movies have basically said we no longer want to be Skywalker Force users. We're going to branch out. Therefore, they are almost the best 3 movies. And I should just mute you guys all right now before I get rebutted. They're the best 3 movies just for that pure fact. But before we leave, Crabback, will you tell everybody where they can find you, how often they can find you, and how they can interact with you before we wrap up here?
Absolutely. You can go to my website, crabbock.com. I've got a list of all of my YouTube stuff. I mean, I'm Crabbock on YouTube, but most of my most important videos are on crabbock.com, all my reviews and stuff like that. And in any of my videos, we got links in the descriptions for the Discord. We have a pretty active and growing Discord in there, and all the social media links. I'm basically Crabbock everywhere, except on Reddit. I'm Crabbock Poopy Pants for some reason.
Oh, fair enough.
There you go.
Now you got me interested. On my break, I'm going to go look that up. With that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-minute break. We will be back. We're going to actually have an X-Wing podcast where we will be talking about the Sith Takers Open. We're going to be talking about the new spoiler alert cards. And Charles, when you asked me how long we're going to spend tonight, I guess we spent an extra half hour having this discussion. So we now have to run 100 million hours an hour to try to catch up so that we can make sure we get all of our X-Wing content in it as well for
Sounds
that.
good.
So with that being said, thank you, Crabbock, for joining us. And I'll have JJ reach out, and we'll definitely be back in touch at some point, especially once Thrawn happens. So,
Man. Can't wait.
I'm hoping we get 2 months between Boba Fett and Ahsoka, so that you and I can have a weekly discussion about the Book of Boba Fett, or not the Thrawn books.
Well, you should hop in our
more-
Discord. That's a great place to do it. Maybe
All right.
I might have to make a separate channel for Thrawn talk.
Okay, so we will 100% do that, and then what we'll do is we'll link that into our Discord so that we have all of the action if you want to get involved. With that being said, give me 5 minutes, please. We'll be back roughly around 9:30 with more Planning Phase Syndicate.